critical focus channel.
Alright, the day is finally here with the much awaited and much needed balance update for Warhammer Underworlds. The game was certainly not in a terrible state, but with some very choice meta picks for Nemesis pairings and warbands. It was very much due, in my opinion. Firstly, we look at some very interesting core rules changes here. We have a change to the place treasure token sequencing. So the player who did not pick their territory places one feature token numbered side down in an empty hex, and then the other player must place one in a neutral territory. I quite like this. If you don't have your say on the territory, you shouldn't be restricted to putting the first one in neutral territory. So I quite like this one actually. And then the same stipulations as before. After all feature tokens have been placed, we must have a feature token on each side and yada yada. Then we have a change to the underdog as well, which is quite a big one. If one player's slain friendly fighters have a greater combined bounty characteristic than their opponents, that player is the underdog. Otherwise, there is no underdog. So instead of the glory total deciding who's the underdog, it is now then instead the greater combined bounty characteristic of slain fighters who does it. Honestly, I feel it's a bit of a case of if it's not broken, don't fix it. I didn't really see a big problem with the previous underdog mechanic, so I don't love that I have to sort of unlearn that and try to remember this one. I think it was a bit uncalled for, honestly. Then we have a change to persisting abilities. Add the following bullet point. Abilities found on War Scroll cards and plot cards persist for the duration of the game unless specified otherwise. And Filthy Casual in my member Discord pointed out a very interesting example here with the Brethren of the Bolt, because it says here with the fulminating hymn, pick one of the following abilities at the start of the combat phase. We have friendly fighters not being able to be flanked, we have ability to take damage instead of taking a charge token, and we have the stagger. So basically at the third run we can have all of these abilities, because it doesn't say they run out here. The longer the game goes, the stronger the sort of human will be sung from the Brethren of the Bolt, I guess. So very interesting. Now let's take a look at the warband changes, and there are quite a few. And first up is Mollog, where we have a change to the Stalag Squig, which is sort of both a nerf and a buff, but mostly a nerf, I'd say. It can no longer be pushed or move, so even if it has a move of 0, you could previously give it plus X move upgrades to make it be able to do so, but the push part especially is a direct nerf to Mollog's tag-along ability, not least. Sure, it is a bit of a boon as well, as opponents won't be able to push him either. Mollog with the tag-along ability though, with especially paired with nasty critters, is widely accurate. So I don't really hate that he has one less sort of minion to rely on for that ability. Next up we look at Blackpowder, and this one is especially fun for me, since I did a fixing bad War Scrolls video on him specifically, where I prayed for some sort of way to get a bit of damage buff on that massive Grunderbus, and here we are. Both the Swag Blast and the Swag Mortar ability now has +1 damage together with their respective other buffs for cleave and extra range respectively. I love to see it. Will it be enough to make him great? I have no idea, but I am sure as hell gonna try him out now. Borgit, Beastgrabbas next has a very slight mistake fixed, which was pretty obvious for most people, with Dreg's ranged 3 attack having the right sort of tag, so it has the ranged attack tag instead of the melee symbol there. Now we arrive at another warband, which I have done a fixing bad War Scrolls video on, with actually changes sort of along the same lines as I proposed here as well. Not that I think that GW listens directly to my stuff, but it is still fun to see, I guess. The Crimson Court now inspires as they are supposed to, in my opinion, namely when they have no hunger at the end of the battle round. just like they did in first edition. No more nonsense with discarding a bunch of power cards, which I think pretty much everyone hated. All your fighters now start with 2 hunger counters, and you can dump one when they successfully attack in melee, or all of your hunger counters if they slay the target. It is not worded as an optional, but the fact that it is a search ability makes it so do keep that in mind. You don't have to do search abilities. If you want to go hungry, you don't have to dump your hunger. You also pile on a new hunger token on each of your fighters at the start of each battle round, and once you have 3 of them, you become that anemic elf that Italy sent to the Eurovision Song Contest. I mean, you get bloodthirsted. Also, when you are bloodthirsted, you will still have that +1 move that you had on the previously called Savage, and you are also unable to get any effect from guard tokens. You supposedly can still have guard tokens, they just don't have any effect. Then as for the abilities, they are pretty much untouched, except for when Savage is mentioned, there is now Bloodthirsted instead. I did hope for more in the abilities, I must say. I don't like that one ability is unusable on Inspired fighters and one ability is unusable on Bloodthirsted fighters, but I still think that it is a huge improvement from that weird whole playstyle with sort of destroying your own deck in the process. For Grinnkraks, there's a very slight change that changes when you can abandon quests. Previously it said at any time, now it says in a power step instead of playing a card. Okay then, now we come to the love of my life. Well, I guess I love my children more, but Hexbane's hunters are finally free to roam their dogs whenever they feel like it. Well, basically, they can now do the reactionary free move even while they have a move token, as long as they don't have a charge token. So they are able to use the dog reaction pretty much like they did before. This buffs the warband quite a bit, even if they of course have other issues such as damage output and survivability, but this should help with accuracy and positioning quite a bit at least. The Kunnin crew next had a change to their Inspire, which now enables you to inspire after a successful attack if the target was slain, flanked or surrounded, and you then inspire each friendly fighter adjacent to the target. Both a nerf and a boon. For the range 2 and range 3 fighters, they now have to attack adjacent. As previously it said, inspire both the attacker and any friendly fighter adjacent to the target. I still think mostly it is a buff though, as this circumvents your inability to inspire versus fighters equipped with upgrades that negate flanking or surrounding. There's also a buff to the previously pre-useless A Cunning Plan. Well, the effect isn't useless, but sort of the way you had to do it was that it now simply requires a surviving leader rather than a leader with a move token. Then we have not actual changes, but a rather interesting FAQ here to Morgok. So what happens if I say that my fighter is going to charge a target that is out of range of my fighter's normal move characteristic? Then I play Wings of War so that they can reach the target, but then my opponent uses the Shut It Pipsqueak to stop the effect of the ploy. So the answer here is that fighter cannot charge and must use the move core ability instead. So you wouldn't be able to simply choose another charge target. You have to just complete a move, which is sort of really damaging. I've never actually had that specific scenario occur in one of my games, but it is certainly good to see that clarified. For Brethren of the Bolt, we now have a clear-cut answer to Heaven's Charge, where we can actually pick a friendly fighter who is already uninspired to resolve the ping, which will then uninspire the friendly fighter. So that makes that ability a lot better. Then we move on to the Sepulchral Guard, and we can now bone shrapnel kill, as the ping no longer requires a non-vulnerable fighter to be the target. On the other hand, it's not usable on a raised fighter, which I honestly think was an unnecessary stipulation. They are not that good. Arise is also changed, where we now raise without putting wounds on those fighters we raise. That is pretty big, as they are really struggling with survivability, but given that we are basically 2 wounds on everyone, it's not going to help us massively anyway. Relentless Blows is not only changed but swapped for Startling Reformation, where you can use this in a power step to remove your leader and place them in a starting hex adjacent to 2 friendly fighters for the cost of a charge token. I certainly didn't expect that one. Too bad to lose Relentless Blows, honestly. I think they could have used a 4th ability instead to just swap one out. This could allow you to be a little more offensive with the leader, though, to then sort of bamf away to a safer position with this ability after the fact. Certainly interesting, but as I said, losing the Relentless Blow does hurt. For Thricefold Discord, they've been nerfed a bit further, with Evasive now only triggering its damage reduction if the evasive fighter is unmoved and uncharged. I still think the less severe ping is the most problematic thing with this warband though, but I guess this helps a bit, I guess. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Zarbag's Gitz are here with 2 changes. Or basically it's 3 changes, disguised as 2 changes. First, a slight change to their Inspire. Instead of equal to or greater, now you have to have a greater an amount of glory than the number of friendly fighters on the battlefield. A sort of nuanced change that will slow them down slightly at least, together with the other stuff coming here. Next part pertains to the squigs, now simply being too bouncy to be able to delve or hold treasure tokens, which will limit their favorite pairings a bit for sure. Also, this ability replaces the barely worth it, so there is the disguised 3rd change. So you will now have a total bounty of 9 in this warband instead of 7. Barely will you wipe Zarbags, but still too many good fighters to get a free pass on the glory you give out. I think there's a case to be made for a fighter like Tik as well, given the extreme mayhem he can cause with his ability compared to some other 0 bounty fighters like Nohem or the Venomites from Itzel. I'm not sure these 2 changes are enough, but there are some other stuff coming in when we leave the warband changes chapter of this video as well. And on that note, we now have come to that very point. We'll now take a look at the updated plot card for the countdown to Cataclysm, which is now actually a countdown instead of a maybe I'll do some countdown, maybe I won't. With the you can advance the tracker changed to you must advance the tracker, both when it comes to the first friendly fighter getting slain in each round and the number of feature tokens without any enemy fighters on them at the end of the battle round. This is effectively a nerf to Wreckers, which I think a lot of people were asking for, honestly, and I'm happy to see it as well. Furthermore, we have a couple of new FAQs to other decks. Basically, the first one states that you can't actually use Bellowing Tyrant unless you have a charge token. And from the Wreck and Ruin deck, we have an FAQ that states that if you are equipped with both Missfortune and Unstoppable, the damage you would take from Missfortune, but now being reduced to 0 from Unstoppable, still enables you to equip another fighter with the Missfortune upgrade after triggering that sort of pseudo damage. Now for changes to the Nemesis format, where we now not only have Forsaken cards but restricted cards as well. And actually one of the Forsaken cards have made it from Hell to Purgatory, I guess, where it's now only on the restricted list with the Blade Catcher. No new cards join the Forsaken list, but together with Blade Catcher we find Delving for Wealth, Illusory Fighter, Mob, Spread Havoc and Supremacy. I think the list looks pretty decent, especially when we consider the fact that we can only take one single card from this list. So for example, you can't take Spread Havoc together with Delving for Wealth for that juicy Pillage and Plunder countdown to Cataclysm pairing, which has been dominating the meta for quite some time. This together with the new deck in the mix, and it will be very interesting to see where the meta goes from here. What are your winners and losers from this balance update? What did you most like and what did you miss seeing here? Was it too much or too little? Comment down below and let's have a big old nerd pile discussion. Thanks for watching and I'll see you all very soon. Take care. Bye. Lastly, a big shout out to all my members that help support my content and makes it so much easier for me to produce multiple videos on a weekly basis. Members do get access to the member Discord, get to influence the content, get early access to a ton of videos, as well as get featured in the monthly painting showcase if they want. Member or not, I dearly appreciate the like, the comment and the subscription.